We're just to introduce everybody for the speakers that are here. We'll have Chief Raymond Flett from lead plaintiff for St. Teresa Point. Also, Chief Elvin Flett, also lead plaintiff for St. Teresa Point, past chief. We'll have Dolores Gakagamek, co-plaintiff of Sunny Lake First Nation. Chief Alex McDougall, Grand Chief Alex McDougall, Sioux Nation, and Grand Chief Kyra Wilson, Assembly Manitoba Chiefs. And we also have Michael Rosenberg. He's the class counsel. He's on him. He won't say any opening remarks, but he will be answering if there's any legal questions. Also at the table is our other Sioux Nation chiefs. Chief Samuel Knott from Red Sucker Sioux Nation. Chief Dino Flett from Garden Hill Sioux Nation. And we have a counselor from Chief Walter Berger, but we have a counselor, I'm sorry, Counselor Madeline Lott. We're going to start with the first speaker, starting with Chief Raymond Flett.
Okay, I'm on. Namulan mo pisa ke pento achimyank. We kiswabti guyak. Awo pamachiwe. Ente tawin dank. Achke awo ugomo o temes tamage. When I kis wapti guyak. Kas tawin dagok. Mozak. Since time immemorial was kachazi. The history of our people. Panto Winter Bank. Thank you, Sandikit. Thank you, Dinak Oyak. When Gagman Wiji Gagman Kagyak support you. Raymond Flett and Dinkath with the Nigats Kamage within Nigabunk, St. Teresa Point. As a kind of guys, about 2 years more than that, as chief. Randa Flett and Kazan Nutigam. Sabago kitan po naman family values kaya guys yan sini kung guys mutik go to tamati kung sa mistake kung isipin maguyak to anime tuyak we basic kung the wakagan so I'm here to say that I got the word from our lawyer that it was an emotional feeling, overwhelming at the same time to receive the decision from the federal court which affirms the government of Canada's obligation to provide quality housing to remote First Nations. You know, our community came together to build this case against the federal government. We opened the doors to our homes, our top houses, our shacks, our tents to tell our story. We did this not only for St. Teresa Point, but for all First Nations. The decision that we received, the court made it clear that Canada cannot maintain the status quo. It must either provide us with the resources that we need to secure adequate housing, or it must restore us to the position we were in before the Crown interfered in our traditional ways of life. Oyachimian, Kawe Kautap Mak Tape, Alvin Flett. When Chief Alvin Flett and St. Joseph's Point Council first took this battle to federal court, they weren't reacting to one crisis. They were responding to generations of broken promises. Chief Alvin Flett saw what too many ignored: Canada's pattern of offering the bare minimum while demanding our maximum patience. His council passed resolution after resolution. They gathered evidence of moldy homes, frozen pipes, families in tents. They refused status quo excuses. Chief Alvin Flett built this case brick by brick, teaching us that treaty leadership means fighting smart, fighting long, fighting together. That foundation holds because one man refused to let Canada dictate Encinitas futures. We honor Alvin Flett today, not as history, but as a living example. I stand here as a chief of St. Joseph's Point Encinitas Nation, carrying that same unyielding fire. My people elected me to lead, not compromise, not to accept federal crisis response when Treaty 5 promised prevention, not to settle for emergency measures when our elders deserve dignity, not to watch another generation breathe black mold while Ottawa claims no jurisdiction. In 1909, our Analek ancestors adhered to Treaty 5 understanding, sacred covenant. Land shared in peace, medicine chest provided, 160-acre reserves per family, schools for our children. We spoke our languages. Our elders witnessed the crown promised. What did we receive 115 years later? Homes without heat, children without safety, families without hope. This isn't an accident. This is policy. And St. Joseph's Point says enough. We should never have needed federal court. For decades we tried diplomacy, banned council resolutions, technical meetings, funding applications, good faith negotiations. Canada responded with delays, conditions, insufficient funds. When R25 FC 1926 Justice Southcott didn't create our rights. He affirmed what treaty elders knew. Canada holds legal duty, fiduciary duty, constitutional duty under sections 7 and 15. Canada cannot hide behind jurisdiction. The court ruled our housing crisis violates basic rights. Now Canada must act or face Encinitas resolve. Chief Dolores Kakakamak of Sandy Lake stands shoulder to shoulder as co-plaintiff. Two nations, one truth. Treaty rights demand adequate housing. Sandy Lake's partnership strengthens us, proves this fight unites Island Lake communities. But victory demands more than partners. It demands mastery. Our legal counsel, Michael Rosenberg and team, delivered exactly that. They mastered 1909 treaty texts, word for word, dissected decades of federal correspondence, exposed contradictions in Canada's own policies, refused technical dodges. The courtroom precision honors every Ancillio voice, from Wasakamac elders to Garden Hill youth. St. Disappoint thanks you publicly and profoundly. The fight isn't St. Disappoint alone. We lead as First Nation, first among equals. For every Ancillio community where homes fail treaty standards, Wasakamac families without clean water,
Thank you.
I mean, you did it.
Oh, no, you did it.
youth
Thank you.
in overcrowded
And will it
homes.
come up when he speaks? Or do you want to pin it on him? I think that
Red Sucker elders without insulation, Island Lake deserves better because our treaty demands better. Canada faces clear choice. Honor sacred words through immediate action. Or test Ancillio patience further. We reject status quo. We demand treaty honoring safe homes built to code, proper infrastructure, self-determining future where Ancillio nations control our own housing authority. Destiny. My people watch closely. They elected leadership to protect, not negotiate away their birthright. The battle Elvin Flett began. St. Teresa Point finishes it. For our children breathing clean air, our elders sleeping warm, our families living treaty promise. This is Ancillio sovereignty in action. And we're here to say, Canada, your court spoke. Now lead or get out of the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Valerie Fred. Now we have Chief Elvin Fred.
Thank you very much, Chief Raymond Flett, for your kind words. And I am honored, especially to sit with the other chiefs here of the Island Lake area, and of course, Grand Chiefs, Grand Chief McDougall and Grand Chief Wilson, sorry. And Chief Dolores from Ontario, Sandy Lake. My notes will be my words will be short, but I want to thank everybody here, especially our legal counsel, Alana and Mike, who've done an excellent job when we started the class action lawsuit a couple of years ago, back in 2023. I'm honored that it's come to this point where the government has acknowledged the fact that they have a responsibility and duty to live up to the promises they made to the First Nations people of Canada, and especially us, the ones that are initiating the class action. We started a legal case against the government of Canada in 2023 because of its disregard for our basic human rights and dignity. The federal government stood by and watched as people lived in inhumane conditions in homes that were barely standing with dozens of people living under the same roof. We've conveyed the urgency of our housing shortage to the federal government, but we got nowhere. It became clear that we had to take more serious action in order to get their attention. We never wanted to take the government to court, and never should we have had to. But we had no choice, because we knew that our survival as First Nations depends on transforming our housing and housing needs. Today, our rights and realities are vindicated. Today, the federal court sided with us. The court agreed that Canada had legal duties to provide adequate housing to remote reserves. This is a powerful decision, as it affirms our rights as First Nations people. Canada can no longer turn the other way. We want to spend our time, energy, and capacity working with Canada rather than fighting with it. We can go so much farther when we work together. When we can build a future where our children can grow up healthy and safe, where their homes support their growth rather than hinder it. How can the government continue fighting us when the court has made clear that Canada directly played a role in creating the housing crisis on the reserve, and that it is legally responsible for addressing this mess it made? The government cannot stand by as our housing conditions worsen. We want to work together on partnership with the federal government to restore the humanity and dignity of our people and provide safe and proper housing for our members and the future generations. So, let's get to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Past Chief Alderman Flett. Our next speaker is Chief, excuse me, Dolores Kakagema, co-plaintiff of Sunny Lake First Nation.
Bonjour. Bonjour, good nama. How are you, Shiang? Namaganin ngana nakama mando. Music kina magoyak. Mujak tina nakmak. Hawe. Kaganwab magoyak mujak. Shagudja. Maj namenendan. When I heard from Chief Flett last week, I could just feel his excitement in his voice. I was standing at the bank, and and then he calls me up, and I could just feel his excitement, and I put him on speaker so my husband can hear. And that was the most, how do you say, the most I've heard him be so happy. And I think this we should be celebrating. And then this is a victory for all First Nations. You know, the court has said that it's time we work together. We invite Canada to do the right thing. Prime Minister, quit fighting us on this and build with us. That's, I get speaking kimjuichi ugyanja chianam yangenin shagucha kimaji kagitian. Other things come up in my head that I would like to express. And, I'm very honored to sit here with Raymond and his fight, that I joined his fight. I must say that I was skeptical, but this decision from the courts, and this is one of the victories, I guess you can say. And I hope I hope the federal government does not stop us, and because we do live in moldy conditions, we do live in these housing that nobody should be living in. And again, I plead to the Prime Minister not to fight us on this, but to work with us and to provide what the courts have told you, that it's time to build, it's time to work together. Miła, miłość.
Thank you, Chief Kakagamek. I'd just like to also recognize that there are three councillors here from Sandy Lake. Their names are Russell Kakapidam, Michelle Goodman, and Alan Ray. They're in their room here. They're in the back or here. Welcome. And our next speaker will be our Grand Chief of Anthony Ogamawan, Alex McDougall.
주국에는 문엔다니 세괴가 마을 지티역 대보이즈 나고는 저는 아크미 기회 가지는데 막고 가위즈가 왜 마치 나타마지 회계기는데 그런데 세우나 그 수그러간 에와 나마 그때 나나크마고노 그치하고는 토타마츠 아염히아운 가기 내가 모아차기 맞대 흐아체금은 아염히아운 가기 파거든 맞 미게인 모자크 나고니 가는 단위 회 가노노곤 왜 만도 모자크 지니가 신세군 해가 도지가득 나나금사시회 우리가 이세고의 집이자의 후마 남콘도가 그치학 원가즈 가노치게 와주는 게위나 기신회계 공화위 또 때문에 그거 마모트 때문에 기회 대이세오세회 존중하는 마틱 늦는다나 회 에즈가 노노고에 그거는 그치하고는 가즈만은 아주 바치게 회계기는 가즈 논데세 가즈 논데세안 회계는 다노노고는 회가 니가냐 주시회 게니네 나나홈 방기 나데 지히티안 한데 지기 좀 잡았다 에고 언제 엠치게 마와게니네 가기 우나즈나마고 안잼탄 wenungumega bijay. Good afternoon, Kitna, elders, chiefs, councillors, Grand Chief Kara Wilson, legal counsel, and those watching with their devices at home virtually. Today marks 115 years since August 13, 1909, when our Ensonu leaders at Allen Lake adhered to Treaty 5. We entered the sacred covenant, nation to nation, with the Crown, understanding our Creator-given rights to hunt, fish, trap, gather medicines, and live as Ensonu in our homelands would be forever. Our medicine chest promise, the 160-acre reserve per family, the schoolhouse, These were our understandings, spoken in our language, witnessed by our elders. Yet 115 years later, we face unfinished business. Canada has tested our patience, but not our resolve. Chief Elvin Flett saw this injustice clearly. His visionary leadership at St. Therese Point refused to accept broken promises. Chief Elvin Flett built the foundation through council resolutions, through persistent advocacy, through refusing the bare minimum. His courage opened this legal path when diplomacy failed. We honor Elvin Flett today as elder, as a warrior, as the one who taught us, as Chief Flett had remarked, to fight smart, to fight long, and to fight, maybe most importantly, together. Chief Raymond Flett picked up the sacred fire as Chief of St. Theresa Point. Raymond carries his predecessor's resolve with fresh strength, standing resolute beside co-plaintiff Chief Dolores Kakagamak of Sandy Lake. They bring two nations' determination to federal court. Canada's own court affirmed our treaty rights to adequate housing. This victory belongs to Elvin Flett's foundation, Raymond Flett's leadership, Dolores Kakagamak's partnership. Chief Raymond Flett, your people are in a new family. Look to you now. Speak their truth. Carry this victory forward. The Grand Council stands with St. Theresa Point. Thank you.
Thank you, Grand Chief. I'd like to just recognize that Chief Sam Knott and Chief Dino Flett and Councillor from West are here to support their colleague, their Chief Raymond Flett, and also past Chief Elvin Flett. And now we are going to open for questions. If you can just direct our... Oh, my apologies. Sorry, I forgot our Assembly Manitoba Grand Chief. My apologies. I'll apologize profusely after. Kara, sorry.
Thank you, Darcy, for the introduction. I appreciate it. I acknowledge all of our leadership here at the table and all of our leadership that are in the room. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the leadership of St. Theresa Point, as well as the leadership of Sandy Lake, and the courage that it took for you to carry this case forward. And not only speaking for your nations, but speaking for all First Nations here in this country. So I want to say thank you for the work that you do and will continue to do. And I acknowledge all of our leadership from the two communities. So thank you for that. So the decision is a historic moment, not just for these nations, but for all First Nations here in Canada. You know, the federal court has affirmed what our people have said for generations, and that Canada has a legal duty to provide adequate housing for First Nations. This is not a favor or an optional program, but this is a legal responsibility that is grounded in treaty, grounded in the honor of the Crown, and is essential to the life and dignity and safety of First Nations within this country. For years, we've seen overcrowding in our homes and children growing up in unsafe conditions and communities that are forced to carry the weight of infrastructure failures that were never theirs to fix. Just like the urban cities across Manitoba, we are seeing more unhoused peoples on reserve that are in desperate need of safe and adequate housing to live in. This ruling does not, or does more than assign responsibility, but it recognizes the lived reality of our people. At the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, we stand firmly behind this decision that housing is a human right, housing is a treaty right, and housing is foundational to the health and safety and nationhood of our people. So today's ruling is not the end, but it is the beginning of a new chapter. The Prime Minister and the rest of the government here in Canada and all levels of government have an opportunity to work with First Nations. You have an opportunity to work with our leadership, to work with our communities, to fix and solve this problem. We should not always have to go to court to be heard. But what we've seen here with this decision is we've seen the strength in our First Nations leadership and our chiefs and our councillors that have brought this forward. And our leadership will continue to fight to have our rights recognized, even if it has to be through the courts. So Canada has an opportunity right now to work with our First Nations leadership to act quickly and act in good faith to implement this decision. So this means immediate engagement with all First Nations and the affected First Nations, but we need clear timelines, we need dedicated funding, and recognizing that First Nations must lead the design and delivery of housing solutions in their own communities. And so what I would say to Canada, as we've heard from our leadership here, is you have an opportunity to work with our First Nations leadership, and now is your opportunity to do that in good faith. So once again, please recognize that treaty rights in this country are not going to go away, and we will continue to fight until our voices are heard. Miigwech.
Thank you, Grand Chief. We have Michael Rosenberg on the line there. I was informed that you will be now saying a few words. And Michael, if you can proceed.
Well, thanks very much for that introduction. I'm sorry I can't be there in person today, but this is a tremendous decision from the federal court that affirms fundamental rights, and it rejects the federal government's position that providing housing to the most vulnerable First Nations is a matter of good governance or moral obligation or charity. It makes clear that this is about fundamental rights. And it's no longer open to the federal government to expect the most vulnerable First Nations to make ends meet, to close infrastructure gaps on their reserves, and to do so without the partnership of Canada. So I echo the comments you've heard from leadership, from the plaintiffs who've carried this case to where it is today and will carry it forward. This is the time to take heart, to adhere to the decision of the federal court, to work together, and to build. It's high time we start building. I, as I said, echo the comments of leadership. I'm happy to answer any legal questions that folks have, but I also defer to the panel and whatever questions the media may have.
Thank you, Michael. I also would just like to point out that his colleague, Elena Roberts, is here in the room with us, standing by with the St. Teresa Point councillors there. So, we are now at this point where we're open for questions and answers from the panel. Proceed. Anybody want to ask a question? We have a...
It's TR Wheatley with APTN. My question is, this is stage 1. If they don't appeal it, it goes to stage 2. What happens in stage 2?
Okay.
That may be a question for me, if I can assist with the structure. So stage 1 was about establishing the existence and the nature of Canada's duties. Canada defended the case on the basis that it owed no legally enforceable duties to class members to provide or assist in providing housing on reserve. The court has now rejected that position and found that the duty exists. Canada has 30 days from the date of the decision, December 5th, to decide whether to appeal that decision. Of course, our clients hope they will not. If Canada does not appeal the decision rendered by the federal court, will progress to stage 2. At stage 2, the court will determine the nature of Canada's breach of its duties and any remedies that flow from that breach. And the remedies can be compensation on the one hand, but they can also be forward-looking to ensure that Canada takes appropriate measures to discharge its obligations. This is about both the past and the future. That will be on the table at stage 2. And stage 2 will progress on the basis of individual First Nations or groups of First Nations that are similarly situated. So it's a process for the case to deliver results for First Nations if Canada continues to fight. Perhaps this might be a question for the panel. I know Chief Kakagamak had some strong views about whether an appeal would be appropriate.
Honestly, probably. These governments have failed us in more ways than one. And for them to, I don't know, to see eye to eye with what we're trying to say, I cannot be 100% in favor of what they think will be the right thing. I don't know if I make any sense, but most likely, yes, I think they will. But if in a world where I hope they don't, that it's the court has said that it is their duty, and if how do you say, if it's the right thing to do, I think the government knows what to do.
Thank you. We're going to have our Grand Chief Alex McDougall add to that question.
Thank you, Darcy. Thank you, Chief Kakagamak. I just wanted to maybe bring to light this decision is timely for our First Nations communities. In fact, so timely that we're currently fighting a hepatitis A outbreak in Island Lake right now. There are people falling sick. We are losing our people to this outbreak. And hepatitis A is indicative of the conditions that we live in our houses. It's a result of, as the leadership pointed out, having mold in the house, not having access to clean drinking water, not having our water system being piped into to all of our homes. So we continue to live and we're continuing to be exposed to these conditions that are harming our citizens and our members. And I'd be shocked to hear that Canada would actually appeal when we're continuing to see crisis after crisis in our communities. And this is just the top of what we're experiencing right now. We all know that in our communities we've got academic proportions of mental and addiction issues that are also impacting our homes and our quality of life. So I thought I'd share that the conditions continue to exist and continue to deteriorate. I think it'd be prudent for the government to react positively to this decision and support the First Nations, ensuring that they have safe, adequate housing, safe drinking water for their families, like you as Canadians, like every other Canadian enjoys. Thank you.
If there is no appeal, I should say, the federal court has just this week made clear that the case is to advance with the sense of urgency that is required given the situation in which class members are living. And so the court has asked for a plan for the Phase 2 proceedings by the beginning of February. So that really does underscore the urgency. It's been a real honor for my colleagues and me to stand with the brave leadership from St. Teresa Point and from Sandy Lake, and I know they're up to the continued fight if that's what we're met with.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the other media? Do you have another question?
Hi, I'm guessing this is probably to Michael again, but in here it says Canada either will provide class members with the resources they need, or it can restore them to a position where they can provide for themselves. Just, I guess, in layman's terms, does this mean that it could look like a class action, kind of like the way the CFS went, where they get paid out? Or is it kind of like where people will get a house? Can you help me understand that?
Right. So the on-reserve child welfare settlement was one that was paid in cash as compensation. And I think we're a ways away from any discussion of settlement at this stage because there's been no willingness to engage on the part of Canada. Canada fought this motion for summary judgment on the basis that it owed no duties, no legally enforceable duties to the plaintiffs. So we're a long way away from talking about settlement as much as you heard leadership inviting Canada to the table. If there were to be a settlement, the plaintiffs would like it to more closely resemble the safe drinking water class action settlements on behalf of Tataskrak Cree Nation, Curve Lake First Nation, and Ishkantika First Nation, where there was a component of compensation to recognize the need for healing and to address the past, but also an important infrastructure commitment to address the future and ensure that these communities don't continue to live in such desperate housing conditions. So you ask, does it mean a house? A settlement, in the plaintiff's view, yes, would mean a commitment to building on a large scale or helping communities build on a large scale to close that infrastructure gap and ensure that future generations don't live in such difficult housing conditions.
Thank you, Michael. Any other questions from the media? Yes, okay, we have another question from APTN.
Hi, TR again. It's actually, you just mentioned it, the safe drinking water one. You guys also gave notice about that. Can you speak to that too, as well? It was just recently, I think on the 8th.
That's right. So the federal court released the decision on housing concurrently with its decision on the second round of safe drinking water litigation. That's the case advanced on behalf of Shamattawa First Nation and Chief Jordan Hill. And the court found that Canada owes duties in respect of safe drinking water on reserve as well. That those communities that were so vulnerable as to have been subject to a long-term drinking water advisory were entitled to look to Canada for assistance in helping them close that infrastructure gap. And for much the same reasons as the court recognized the duty in respect of housing. So really a blockbuster day for infrastructure on reserve for the most vulnerable First Nations. And a very welcome development for our clients in the safe drinking water litigation as well.
Thank you once again. Do you have any more questions? No. Anybody else? I think, well, since we're open till 3,
just for Chief Flett and Chief Kakagamak, yeah, this process was started 2 years ago. How long, or how have you seen things change in that 2-year process? And now hearing that change could be coming as early as February for the plan, what have the past 2 years been like for you?
Ladies first, Ikta. So, like I said, I was always rather skeptical as to where this was going to go. But, you know, hearing the decision from last week, I don't know, it just puts some good measure to the system, I suppose, that it does work after all. You're right. Michelle.
Kaya kigun diese tikse me nach tikse me thing kigun. Since couple years. I'm done. Not kidding. I just said I haven't seen very much difference. It's the same thing, status quo. But kind of like I said before, it's there's an overwhelming feeling to hear what the court has decided with this court case. That came from the federal court. So I'm also happy to hear now that might be a plan in place to move forward. Yeah, we want to see changes. We all make changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Just another quick note, side note to Chief Dolores and Raymond's comments. The First Nations in Manitoba, I don't know if it's the same in Ontario, our band-based capital been capped almost 3 decades. So we've never had the resources to respond to the lack of housing or the lack of critical infrastructure that we have in our communities. Government has never looked at assessing to see what that need is. All we know is that our band-based capital was capped almost 3 decades ago, and we are not given the resources to respond and to be able to plan with adequate housing for our community members. So as our communities continue to grow in population, the funding remains stagnant, and there's more and more pressure on that, what little resources we have to be able to provide services for our community. So again, the conditions aren't improving, and in fact, they're continuing to deteriorate, as I've pointed out earlier with the example of the hepatitis A outbreak. So I thought I'd throw that in there as well. And it's the same thing with education. Funding's capped long time ago. We don't get the same parity in consideration for the education file. Our funding levels are similarly disproportionate to what other education systems receive as far as per nominal role. So there isn't parity in that. If you're a First Nations community, you're not given the same consideration for funding.
thank you for adding that. We'll take one more question. We're done at 3. Scheduled to done at 3. Go ahead.
Can you elaborate more on the Hep A outbreak? Like how much people are affected and what we're doing to try to combat that?
Yes, for clarity's sake, I mean, Chief Dino Flett was a community that's more affected, and he's getting Grand Chief to answer that.
I haven't seen the most recent dashboard information as far as the number of people affected, but last I saw that we were continuing to get numbers increasing. Depending on which community you look at, there's a more higher prevalence of Hep A in Garden Hill currently. I think we had 8 and 9 confirmed cases, a fatality, and we have a number of cases in all of the island communities going through the same numbers. So We are looking at having an immunization blitz going into the communities. We do have nurses that have opened satellite clinics here in the city, trying to encourage our community members that are traveling out for medical to allow them to, should they want to get immunized against Hep A, that option is there for them. But we are putting out the education and prevention videos out there to sort of help minimize and mitigate the spread of Hep A in our communities.
Thank you. She's got a whole library of questions there, so with that, thank you very much. If there's no more questions, we can call this the end of our press conference. I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance, and also for those that wish to stay. We're serving soap and bannock on the second floor, so if you can